Hello, good afternoon. No.
Good afternoon.
Okay, yep, all right. Good afternoon, sorry for this. Welcome here in sunny Brussels. We're here today in this digital environment to do a digital event. We're going to celebrate in a digital way. And what are we celebrating today? We're celebrating today 15 years of the ECC-NET. Now, my name is Rick. I will be your host for this afternoon. I'm going to try to guide you through a number of things that we're going to do. We're not only going to celebrate, but we're also going to inform you. Now, 15 years of trying to protect the European consumer and trying to maximize his or her right as a consumer. That has been quite a task, 15 years. If you look back 15 years, in 2005, there was no social media. We had no smartphones. There was hardly any e-commerce. Just imagine how much our world has changed in that 15 years and how important protecting consumers in this fast-changing environment has been. Now, we're not only going to celebrate the last 15 years, but we're going to look into the future. We're going to look and think about the day after tomorrow. 2025, 2030, 2035 even. Now, I can tell you that the next 15 years will be way more devastating and way more challenging than the first 15 years. We are entering a world that will be driven by big data, artificial intelligence, robotization. My daily job is to guide and inform and coach companies into putting the customer in the center of the universe. And now I'm glad that I can be here in this very important celebration of trying to protect the consumer against not the good, but the bad and the ugly of what companies might do, whether they want it or whether it happens by accident, with the consumer. We have to help the consumer and we have to inform the consumer about his or her rights. And that is a major important task. Now, I hope that when we are traveling, what I love to call the twilight 20s, that zone in between the old world that was not digitized and the new world that will be hyper-digitized and will be hyper-personal for each individual consumer, at least that's what companies want to do to upsell, cross-sell, and deep sell. I think that in that twilight zone between the dying old normal and the new normal that's not born yet, and we are writing the scripts, we are not going to use the old ways of protecting the consumer, but we have to invent new ways of protecting the consumer and of informing the consumer what are his or her rights. And one of the major differentiators between doing that right or doing that wrong will be passionate curiosity, because we will we will have to be extremely curious about what's next and what can we do better and more. Now, I hope that I have given you enough curiosity to spend this afternoon and learn more about the new consumer and how you're going to use your knowledge and your passionate curiosity to help that consumer in the future. Now, I'm glad and delighted that we could have asked Monsieur Didier Reynders, who is, I'm a Belgian guy, I know Mr. Reynders as my former Vice Prime Minister. Hello, Mr. Reynders.
Hello.
But for the moment, you are the Commissioner of the European Union for Justice. Now, the fact that the Commissioner for Justice wants to spend at least half an hour answering questions by young journalists about their questions about how the ECC and how the European Union can deal with consumers is for me a very clear signal that you put and that the European Union puts the rights of the consumer very high on the agenda. And I'm very glad that you want to spend this half an hour with us and want to answer the questions of young journalists. They did a dry run at the 10th of November. I saw the whole session, and a couple of the questions were handpicked. And I'm going to give the word to the first young journalist, Monsieur Reynders, so she can ask you the first question. Ms. Barbora Pankova from Czechia, are you here?
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Hello. This sounds like the European, what is it? The European Song Contest. I'm not asking for the points of the Czech Republic, but what's your question, Barbara?
Okay. What has the Commission done so far so that consumers don't blindly trust the false claims of the online sellers of COVID-19 protective equipment, such as protective masks? And what can be done further in order to educate the consumers on that point?
Monsieur Reynders? Thank you. First of all, I want to say happy birthday maybe for such an anniversary. It's important to say that happy birthday to ECC-NET. And I'm very pleased to answer to some questions from young journalists, because you know that we are in a very important moment for the consumers. We are coming with a consumer agenda. But of course, there are a lot of specific problems during the COVID-19 crisis. And it's true that the question is right. It was very needed from the beginning of the crisis, from the first wave, to react. And we have tried to react immediately at different levels. I want just to say that we have, of course, rapidly activated the network of consumer protection authorities, CPC, to be sure that it was possible to look into the COVID-19 related online scams, and including cases where traders were misleading, claiming preventive or curative effect of certain products. We have seen, like me, I'm sure, different false informations about masks at that time. But we tried to work also with the internet platform. And so we were, from the beginning, in contact with 11 major platforms to ask the platforms to remove ads and to fight against rogue traders and to try to do the job with us from the beginning, and not only in the EU, maybe at the worldwide level, because I've seen that it was possible to remove or block hundreds of millions of misleading coronavirus-related ads and listings. To give an example, Google blocked over 270 million ads globally. eBay, because it's possible also to work with such a kind of platform, more than 44 million, and Facebook, 8.5 million pieces of content were removed from Facebook and Instagram worldwide. So it's also important to work with the platform. And I took again a contact at the beginning of this month with the platforms, because I'm afraid about the possible second wave of scams and new ads, about the test, because you know that we try to test more and more about the COVID-19, and maybe later, from the end of this year, beginning of next year, with the vaccines. And so it's very important for the health of the citizens, but also for the consumers, to be attentive to that. So we have worked with the consumer protection authorities, with the platforms. Of course, it was also possible for the consumer protection authorities, the CPC, to organize their own investigations, so the so-called sweeps, and we have organized in May and in June 2 online investigations. And I must say, with as a result, the confirmation that we have a huge problem during the COVID-19 crisis, with more and more people at work online, but not only the consumers, also crime organizations. We have seen that with Europol. And so it's very important to continue such a dialogue with the platforms, to continue to work at all levels with the national authorities. But in the question, it was also very important to insist on the fact that we need also to send information directly to the consumers and to ask the consumer to be very attentive, to find themselves against such a kind of situation on the platforms and on internet. And so we have tried to exchange and to give advice to the consumers in all the languages in the European Union. And we have tried to do that by the online dispute resolution platform to send messages. But I want to say, thanks to the centers at European level, it was also possible to be in very close contact to the consumers. It's important that the centers are doing the job also in the future to be in close contact with the consumers, to send communication. And my last words is to say that we ask also to the different industries to do the same. You have received, maybe like myself, some mails from your bank to ask to pay attention to possible false mails coming from criminals and trying to take the control of your bank account. But it's the same in many other sectors. So again, we are at work from the beginning of the crisis, and unfortunately it will continue during some months, and certainly with new work traders trying to organize online sales of tests, of vaccines, and of many other products without any effect against the COVID-19. So that's the answer to such a question, but it's true that the education of the consumer is very important.
Yeah, and it's been, COVID-19 has been a speed course into all things digital, and has been quite a challenge, I reckon, also for you and your department. I've got a second question. The second question comes from Italy. Andreas Inama, sorry, Andreas. Oh, I had you in the call yesterday. Good to see you again, Andreas. And I'm looking forward to your question.
Good to see you too. Greetings from Bolzano. Good afternoon,
Oh,
Commissioner.
Bolzano, okay. How's the weather in Bolzano?
Oh, the sun shines.
Okay, enjoy it. Okay, now your question.
Yeah. In the case of mass travel cancellations, is the Commission considering the possibility to regulate on a European level rights and obligations for consumers and traders when it comes to individual cross-border services, such as accommodation services, which are not regulated at the EU level?
Thanks for the question, because it's true that we have had, Andreas, many problems in the tourist sector, and it was very important to react in the tourism sector very fast. And first of all, of course, because we have some regulations. You speak about the non-regulated sectors, but in the tourism sector, we have some regulations for the passenger rights with the passenger rights regulation, and for the package travel with the package travel directive. And I must say that, first of all, in the regulated sector, it was also difficult to manage the situation, because it was our job at the Commission level to push pressure on the member states to go back, if I may, to a correct application of the EU law, because you have seen in many countries some changes in the regulation and the legislation during the crisis to give more delays to reimburse the consumers, or to give to put into place an obligation to give a voucher and not to go to the reimbursement. Or there's a right for the consumer to be reimbursed. And so the first action at the Commission level was to push pressure on the member state, also with infringement proceedings before the Court of Justice, to be sure it's possible to have a correct application of the regulation. But I'm saying that because it's not enough. We need, first of all, to try to see how it's possible to have a full enforcement of the consumer rights. It's the reason why, and I want to explain that, but in our new consumer agenda, I must say that we try to move from a consumer protection to a real enforcement of the rights, because also with a real description of the rights in the legislation, it's not enough. And to be concrete, now we have the majority of member states online in full compliance with the EU law, but we don't see so many reimbursements coming from the airlines companies or tour operators or travel agencies. So we have given the capacity to those actors to reimburse. You know that there are some state aid, some facilities and about the liquidity of the companies, but we need also to help the consumer organizations to organize collective actions in justice to ask the reimbursement. So in a regulated part of the tourist sector, it was already very difficult. Of course, for the rest, like you said, there are national legislations. And of course, sometimes it's possible for the consumer to use the reference to the so-called force majeure to try to organize the process and to say that they need to receive a reimbursement of their reservation. But it's for cross-border activities in tourism, but also in sport, in culture. But I must say that with the evaluation that we have for the moment of the situation, we don't see a need to go to an EU regulation. We have the impression that it's possible to work with the national legislations, but of course with a real enforcement of the national legislation, so to work with the national authorities. And because, of course, you know that we need all the time to think about the proportionality and the subsidiarity of all EU legislation. So again, we try to do the job in the regulated part of the sector, but for the rest, we are more working with the national authorities and to try to organize with the national authorities in charge of the consumer protection to do the job and to be very active on this. Of course, we are open to see if it's needed to have other evolutions, but for the moment, we don't think about a real change and we don't think to have an extension of the regulation at the EU level.
Okay, thank you. For people that have other questions or remarks or whatever, please use the chat function. We might not have time today to go into depth of your questions or remarks, but it always is also for the ECC a learning process to know your questions and remarks. So please don't hesitate to use the chat function. Now we go to Finland, to Emma. Hi, Emma Koponen. Hi, Emma, you had a question as well.
Yes.
The floor is yours.
Thank you, and good afternoon to everyone. Consumers are often made responsible to act green and make sustainable choices. However, the companies who manufacture products have a big impact on the defects of devices, which cause early obsolescence. How do you, as Commissioner of Justice, plan to ensure that the companies tackle this issue in a profound way? Thank you.
Thank you. The green transition, of course, is one of the priorities with the Green Deal of the European Commission. So we try to take the consumers on board in two transitions, the green transition and the digital transition. And when you speak about the green transition and the sustainability of the products, it's very important to give more and more credible and readable information to the consumers, first of all, and certainly also about the lifespan of the products, but also the repairability of the products and different kind of elements. And you spoke about the obsolescence. Of course, it's a real issue because in the current situation with the current EU consumer law, early obsolescence practices can, of course, under certain limited conditions, already be considered as a breach of the Unfair Commercial Practices Directive. So it's possible to work with such a qualification of some kind of obsolescence as an unfair commercial practice. But however, it's not explicitly forbidden under this directive, and certainly not the premature obsolescence is not forbidden. So there are currently only very limited EU-wide information requirements on the durability of products. We need to work on this. So we will try in the near future to come with new regulations and new proposals to empower consumers to actively participate in the Green Deal and certainly with an obligation to put on the products more information about the lifespan of the products, about, I said, the repairability, the different element in relation with the sustainability, and why not maybe to go further about the obsolescence and to forbid some kind of premature obsolescence. Because for the moment, we have seen different investigations at the national level, but with not so many consequences on the ground. It was very difficult to have a real procedure to find against that. So it's true that we need to do more, and or to use the actual directive about the unfair commercial practices, or to come in the new legislation about the Green Deal and the participation and empowerment of the consumers in the Green Deal, to take new rules about the information given by the companies about the durability of the products. And I want just to add that that is for the legislation, but we will also come with non-legislative proposals, and maybe at the end of this year, beginning of next year, we'll try to present some green consumption pledges from major companies to lead by example, to show that it's possible to give a better information about the durability and to take more commitment also about the so-called obsolescence.
Quite a bit of challenges, Mr. Reynders, but I can tell you I'm involved, or I consult quite a lot of that large companies. What you see is also a mind switch in those companies to be more proactive and to be more transparent about their products. And there will be always the good, the bad, and the ugly. And let's hope that the good, and you were talking about the good examples, let's hope that the good examples will be the ones that kind of lead all the others. Now we move to Portugal. We move to Mr. Eusebio. Hi, Mr. Eusebio.
Hi.
You had a question, another challenging question, but now a question that comes from Portugal. So please ask your question to Mr. Reynders.
Yeah, hi from Lisbon. My question has to do, for instance, in a case of an EU citizen who ends up over-indebted because of taking consumer credit online, agreements via digital means, what can the Commission do to protect such a consumer that unfortunately could end up in this situation?
Yeah, good question, Mr. Reynders.
But in the previous life, you know that I was in charge for the finance department in my home country, so in 12 years.
Yeah.
And the first concern is to see that we have more and more new lenders on internet, online. And so, first of all, we need to try to have the same kind of level of protection online that offline. It's true for the safety of products, it's true for many other kind of issues, but it's of course true for the financial products. And so it's very important that we put that as a priority in the new consumer agenda. And of course, we have the intention to revise the consumer credit directive, because in such a directive, we need to be sure that the directive is fit for the digital world, and so that it's possible to move, again, with the same level of protection in the digital world. And we intend to revise the provisions concerning the creditworthiness assessment of the consumer. You know that there are a lot of requests for the moment about the creditworthiness assessment of the consumer offline, but of course it's very important to be sure that it's possible to do that also online, and to prevent irresponsible lending, because we have seen huge evolutions in that on internet. And lenders should take into account the actual situation of consumers and calculate the burden of all existing loans before to go further. If it's not correctly done, like in the offline world, it must be possible to put into place dissuasive sanctions. So again, we need to move with the same protection from the offline world to the online world. And then there's maybe some possibility to work with different partners. We have increased in the last years the debt advice. So the possibility to give some advice to the consumers and to try to help the consumers. And we will invest more in that. And maybe to be sure that maybe from 2021, from next year, we will have new actions enhancing the availability and, of course, also the quality of debt advice services in the member states, because it's also a possibility to support with local advice the consumers, for example, in remote areas. But again, the main issue is to be sure that we protect in the same way the consumers in the online world and in the offline world. And I must say that one of the priorities of our new consumer agenda is to protect some vulnerable people. And in the vulnerabilities, you have the financial vulnerability. And just the last word, we need also to protect, but maybe more to give a better access to the people with disabilities, because we'll have more and more financial services online. And of course, sometimes it's very difficult for people with disabilities to have a real access to the online products. And so, of course, we need to continue to provide the services offline, but if there are more and more possibilities online, must be for all the citizens and also the vulnerable citizens, but not only vulnerable, also, like I said, people with disabilities with maybe a low capacity to have an access for the moment. So there are a set of possible change in the regulation in the Consumer Credit Directive, and maybe some evolution in the technical tools to give a better access to many people to the financial services online.
Okay. Thank you for that last insight, Mr. Reynders. We're evolving more and more to what I love to call the Homo sapiens world, in which the offline and the online world are merging into one world. And if you talk about accessibility, we're always thinking about the physical accessibility, but what you've just described is that there is also a digital accessibility, and that people that even when they develop an internet or e-commerce, that they have to think about the disabled people to give them access and the same type of access to just like you do in the physical world. For me, that's a new insight. So thank you very, very much about this.
Please.
Yeah.
And there are different kind of disabilities.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Need to think about different situations.
Yeah, it's visual, it's hearing, and yeah, okay, great insight. Now you come to a question that is close to my dada, which is the Internet of Things and the impact of Internet of Things. So we're moving to Spain now, and I'm going to, your name is too beautiful not to pronounce it. We're going to Jose Fernando Martin Garcia in Spain. And thank you for the question, because you had a question about the Internet of Things and the impact of the Internet of Things.
That's true. Good afternoon, everyone. And first of all, I would like to say thank you to the Commissioner, Monsieur Reynders, and of course, thank you to the European Commission and the ECC-NET for this amazing event. And of course, congratulations for these 15 years and for the coming future. Happy birthday. And the question for the Commissioner is, what are the challenges for the Internet of Things in order to warrant the security of products? Thank you so much and enjoy the party.
You're part of the party. Enjoy the party as well, okay?
But again, it will be needed to adapt, to revise the General Product Safety Directive, because we have a safety net for all the products with the General Product Safety Directive. But in the same way that about the financial services, we need to be sure that it's possible to give the same protection also for the products connected, like the Internet of Things, or also the same protection for products including AI in the good or in the services, than for the classical products. And so I'm sure that there are new risks and new challenges, and so we will revise the General Product Safety Directive. But to be more concrete, in the challenges and risks that we are seeing in the new developments of Internet of Things and AI in the different goods and services, cyber threats may affect safety. This could be the case of a connected cooker that could be hacked and led to explode, causing harm in consumers or physical problems. If you have maybe with some connections the possibility to by hackers to have a real influence on the object and maybe to provoke some so-called accident, but here maybe a voluntary accident with a real damage for the physical damage for the people. But we have also personal security risk involved. In 2019, to give an example, I will read that because it was a concrete example, a smartwatch for children was notified to the safety gate RAPEX by the Icelandic market surveillance authorities. And the product lacked minimum security features. So it could be easily hacked by an external party and get access very easy to the children. Or you know that there are many risks, of course, to let the children be in contact with some people online without any real relation with them. So there are many possibilities to see risks in the development of Internet of Things. I was speaking about different energy matter. If you put a matter in your household to see what kind of consumption of energy you have, but it's possible to send many other kinds of informations to the producer of energy. To give an example, it's possible to know where you are in holidays or not due to that. So it's possible to have a full compliance of such a kind of Internet of Things with the GDPR, with the data protection, because you need to be protected about your personal data. And you know that there are more and more connected to things, and with the possibility to collect through such a connection many data about you. And then on AI, just one word to say that on AI it's maybe different. It's not only the safety in general, but it's also the protection of the fundamental rights and the protection against any form of discriminations, because we need to know how it was possible to organize the treatment of the data before to use AI in an application in one of another sector. Because it's very important to see that there are no discrimination inside the treatment and the collection of data. And of course, we will be very attentive to that, to be sure that it's possible also to protect the fundamental rights in the way to use AI. But it's true, on safety, it's very challenging. And so we will need to continue to discuss with the different actors and stakeholders to see what kind of adaptations are needed in the General Product Safety Directive, because there I said we have new challenges and new risks, and we need to take those risks into account.
Okay. Again, challenging. A Commissioner of Justice that has to be a specialist in AI as well, Mr. Reynders. That I think if we would have said that 10 years ago, nobody would have believed it, but it is going to be a huge part of the responsibility. And now for the last question, we are...
Maybe if I...
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
Just because you speak about justice, to say it's a good example. It's possible to see many risks in the use of AI, but I want also to insist on the fact that there are so many opportunities.
Absolutely.
Because if it's possible to use AI to have a better access to all the possible documents useful for a procedure or for a discussion in justice, it's fine. But of course, if you use AI just to go to the end of the process and to take the decision in justice, it's become to be unfair. We want to have a human being at the end, as a judges, taking the decision. So in some ways, AI will be very positive and very useful, of course, like in many other fields, also in the justice sector, to help the different actors to go faster, to have better access to all the documentations and all the elements, to have a better treatment of the procedure. But at the end, we don't want to have AI replacing human beings to take the final decision. So you see what are the risks, but also, of course, what are the benefits.
You're talking about augmented human beings that are augmented by AI, but in the end it's human beings. Just like augmented reality, it's still a reality, but it's augmented by artificial intelligence. For the last question, we move to the Netherlands. Hi, Shania Lieberwirt. You had a question that had got to do with, I mean, we're talking about the world of the internet, a world of ones and zeros in the internet that doesn't end at the borders of the European Union. So I had a question about what about when we go cross-European?
Yes, so my question is, how can consumer protection bodies ensure that consumers are protected when shopping in international markets, especially from websites like AliExpress and Wish, but also Amazon UK in light of Brexit?
Yeah, I love the question.
Goedemiddag. Eerst en vooral, goedemiddag. Maar no, it's true that we need to pay attention not only to the different actors located in the EU. We need to be very attentive to the different producers coming from abroad. And of course, we need also to be attentive to the main platforms coming from abroad, because sometimes you have mentioned one platform coming from China, but there are many platforms coming from the US, we are knowing that. And so the first element is to repeat that the traders selling goods to the European Union consumers have to comply with the EU consumer protection framework. And so it's very important, the requirements that we are putting into place for the protection of the consumers are, of course, to be respected by the EU producers, but also for all by all the other traders having an activity in Europe. And if I may, to take a very concrete example, you know that we are in the last weeks before the Brexit. In the post-Brexit situation, all goods coming from UK will have to continue respecting EU rules. So we need to explain that it's very important to stick to that. And online trade, however, poses a specific challenge for product safety controls, because you know that if you organize sales online, it's possible to go directly to the homes of the consumers. So it's very difficult to control the products in the same way. So we need to improve measures to develop measures to improve safety from design. For example, with training of manufacturers in producing countries about the requirement that we are putting into place. And of course, we need also to increase the responsibility in the supply chain to be sure that it's possible to try to control the evolution of this. And you know maybe that in the next weeks, with some colleagues like Thierry Breton and Margaret Vestager in the Commission, we will come with a Digital Services Act, which will include the responsibilities of platforms. Because I want to confirm two things. First, it's very important to work with voluntary pledges, with code of conduct, with soft law, and so with a real decision of the platform to take part in the process. But then it's very important to put a level playing field in place for all the platforms, to be sure that all the actors are working with us. I must say that in the voluntary phase, also during the COVID-19, we have had contact with Alibaba, like with Amazon and other European platforms. But we have had also contacts with the Chinese customs. And if I may, we try to see how it's possible to continue to work on it and to be sure that it's possible also for the marketplaces to play a real role, since you know that since the update consumer laws in end 2019, we have increased the transparency obligations for online platforms. And notably, they should indicate the identity of the actual supplier, and whether it is a business or another consumer, because you have also the second-hand goods, and whether the supplier or the marketplace is responsible for the delivery or for handling returns. And we need to continue to work on the transposition of that in the national legislations, because it's very important to be sure that we have such a capacity. I want just to add that, because we have mentioned that maybe in the previous part of the discussion, if we are doing that, sometimes it's maybe possible to work with a voluntary commitment coming from platforms, producers and others, because they have the same conviction than us, or they want to have a good reputation or a good image, with a green image. But we are knowing that it's not all the time the case. So it's very important to go to mandatory legislations just to fight against greenwashing. I said this morning, you have maybe followed the US elections. 1 year before the elections, Mr. Trump said that he was the most efficient man for the green transition in the world. So I don't know if it's greenwashing or not, but we are not so far. So we need to take care also in such a kind of communication coming from some companies. And if I'm looking to the reason what we are for doing that is the trust. How it's possible, and it's very important for the producers, for the platforms, for different actors, for all the stakeholders. It's very important to build a real trust between the consumers and the producers. If you don't have a trust, you don't have a real development of your market. And of course, there are some actors who doesn't want to have the trust because they want to make money in a short period of time with maybe scams and other kind of activities. But if we want to build a real development of the sustainable economy between the producers and the consumers, we need to build trust. And it's important for the producers because I want just to say a last word with the last figure. The consumers in Europe are spending 54% of the total GDP of the European Union. So if you don't have the consumers on board, you miss something. And so again, it's very important to build a trust between the consumers and the producers. And it's a real reason why we try to do that with some obligations applicable not only for EU companies, but also for companies coming from abroad. But at the end, we need also, and thanks for the centers to take part in such a process, we need also to try to train better the consumers, because the first line of protection is in the hands of the consumers themselves. Yeah. If they don't be very attentive against possible greenwashing, scams, and other kind of false information, they need to say that if you have a very low level of price, sometimes it's too good to be true. So you need maybe to think that it's not the best way to take the very low level of price if you want to have a sustainable product. So that's the way we are working. But again, I want maybe to say again, happy birthday to the network. And I'm sure that we will have to work a lot together to explain the new consumer agenda and to try to move on all those new challenges, and certainly not only about the green transition, but we have seen today through the questions in the digital transition. It's a totally new world that we are developing now. It's very important that the consumers are very concerned about such an evolution, and it's our task to be sure that all the consumers has a possibility to work online in good conditions. And it's a long journey to do that.
Okay. I want to thank the young journalists for all those questions. I want to thank you, Mr. Reynders, for your open and very clear answers. And I remember in the last answer that you gave that you also described the business case, why consumer protection is this important for the European Union. Of course. And advising quite a lot of companies, I know how important it is to have a business case, and this was a pretty clear business case. Again, I want to thank you in the name of everybody that's watching. I want to thank you in the name of ECC, and I can tell you I'm been in contact with them now for a couple of weeks. I've become a fan of their work, and I think they're going to make that work in the next 15 years as well. Okay, so thank you very, very much.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Talking about 15 years, now we're going to try to summarize 15 years in a couple of seconds. 15 years of consumer protection, 15 years of building up knowledge about how to do that, 15 years of the ECC-NET. We've received a video by ECC the Netherlands about the ECC story so far. What are the highlights? What are the achievements? What is the ECC network over the last 15 years? Please, we're looking forward to seeing that short video by the Netherlands.
Our story started back in 2005 when the European Commission and EU member states decided that there should be a network that makes it easier for consumers to exercise their rights in the European Union, Iceland and Norway, increasing consumer confidence and removing language barriers. Our legal experts are the heroes who day in, day out answer consumer questions and resolve cross-border consumer complaints. We raise consumer rights awareness and help Europeans exercise their consumer rights. And throughout the years, we organized network-wide a number of awareness-raising schemes, campaigns, lectures, and trainings. We defend the interests of consumers by identifying problems at an early stage and proactively informing and alerting consumer authorities and European stakeholders to improve European and national regulations and policymaking. As an expert on European consumer legislation, we carry out comparative research and publish studies and reports which are consulted by numerous stakeholders, and contribute to the lawmaking process through public consultations and are regularly consulted in evaluations of how existing laws are performing. In the last 15 years, we welcomed new member states, close collaborations and partnerships, new tasks and responsibilities. In a fast-changing world in which consumers' needs and behavior evolves, we stay relevant by continuously upskilling our services and finding new innovative ways to serve consumers. We progress and develop constantly in order to also help consumers in the future. Today, there is an ECC in every EU country, as well as in Iceland, Norway, and the United Kingdom. More than 150 legal experts provide assistance in 24 different languages, free of charge. In our 15 years of existence, we helped more than 1 million consumers and developed into a network of proven value for European consumers and European consumer policy and its future. Here's to the next 15 years.
In 2005, the European Commission and the Member States set up the European Consumer Centre Network to assist consumers when they shop across borders. More than 1 million consumers relied on the network to seek solutions to their problems. I'm convinced that the European Consumer Centre Network, with its practical support to consumers, will remain in the future an essential feature of the Union's consumer cooperation. I wish the ECC a happy birthday.
One happy birthday after another, I love it. Have you seen in that video that shadow, that Superman shadow? Okay. We've been talking about the past, now we're going to look into the future. We're going to have a panel discussion on the topic of how to motivate sustainable behaviors for that new consumer. And we're running a little bit over time, so I'm going to do a short introduction to the panelists. I can tell you, we were talking about Superman, Superwomen. I've got 4 Superman, Superwomen here on consumer protection. First of all, and I'm going to use the order that I've been given, so don't blame me for being last or being first. Let me start with Monique Gooyens. Hi, Monique. Good afternoon. Monique, you are the Director General of the BEUC, the European Consumer Organization. And I'm going to read it because otherwise I can't, I'm going to read it. You're a consumer expert and advocate. You're currently a member of the EU high-level forum for the better functioning of the food supply chain. Now, I'm European. Food is what I need on a daily basis. This is so important that you do this, also this. And I reckon that consumer protection is your passion. Rainer Ettel. Rainer, you are the head of the Directorate Consumer Policy and Enforcement of the German Federal Ministry of Justice and Consumer Protection. And I see that you're already involved in that area since 2000. So you've seen the world changing. No? Okay.
No, in this respect, since 2016.
Since 2016. But you're involved in consumer protection since 2000, or am I wrong here? Yeah.
No, in 2016.
Okay, yeah. All right, now we have got Anna Ekegren. Do I see it right, Anna? Most probably not. My Swedish is not existent. You sent me an email. you're the legal advisors that work for the Swedish Consumer Agency since 2010, if I have it right. Before that, you worked almost 10 years in product safety issues and child safety. And you're very much involved into aiming to change customer behavior into a more sustainable direction. So this topic is absolutely your topic. And if we have some time at the end, you also have a question for the other panelists. But I don't know whether we'll have the time or not. And then we have Bogomil Nikolov. Hi, Bogomil. Good afternoon as well. You're a member of the European Economic and Social Committee, and you're the Executive Director of the Bulgarian National Association Active Consumers since 1999. Yeah? You've really seen the world changing under your watch. Yeah, 1999. To quote Prince, we have to stop the party like it's 1999. We're 2020. Yeah. Let's look forward into the future. We've got 2 questions for you. The questions are not a surprise because you knew what the questions would be. And it's about motivating sustainable behaviors amongst consumers. And the first question, and Monique, I'm going to start with you, is what are your wishes on sustainable consumption?
Yes, good afternoon. And first of all, happy anniversary, ECC. I'm long enough in the business to have you seen started. So very, very impressed by the development.
Okay.
Now, as we don't have a lot of time, I stop here with my wishes and I dive into sustainable consumption. My wishes, that's 2 words and they are contradictory: ambition and speed. Because we really need to make this happen quickly in order to mitigate the climate crisis, but we need to be ambitious because we cannot be satisfied with half measures. And there, what is very important, certainly in for the consumer policy aspect, is that it will be the people who will make it happen. You can have as many regulations, as many policies, as many strategies. If the people, the consumers, are not going to change their lifestyles, it won't happen. You have to change the way you eat. How much meat do you eat? I mean, so we really need to change our lifestyles, food, the way we move, the way we travel, the way we heat or cool our houses. So there is a huge challenge on the consumer. And the message that I would like to say here is that you cannot put this burden to shift your lifestyles on the individual consumer. It cannot be only the consumer based on what we call empowerment, like a hype concept, which is about information and transparency. I mean, this is of course key. You need consumers to be informed and to be protected against unfair marketing practices. But you need to create a whole ecosystem of regulatory measures, policy measures, and market measures that make the sustainable choice the most attractive one. So that means that you need also, for example, to really develop a policy where unsustainable products are off the market. They're just not available anymore. So and there is really certainly a lot to do. Also, when it comes to sustainable housing, you need, and that's also something that Mr. Reynders mentioned this earlier. You need to be inclusive. It's sustainable consumption is not for the rich. It should be for everybody, and that means that you need to adopt, and roll out reverse policies that prioritize the less affluent to be the most sustainable.
Yeah.
And I stop here to leave the space for my colleagues.
No, but adopt and adapt is pretty close to each other, And you were talking about the San Francisco way of doing stuff. Think big, start small, and move fast. That's what you need to do. Yeah, okay. I'm going to follow the order, and then we're going to come back in the reverse order. So Monique, you will have the closing note today as well. Reiner, what's your opinion on, what's your wishes on this sustainable consumption?
Good afternoon from Berlin. And first, thank you very much for the invitation and the chance to take part in this event. Of course, first of all, I would like to take the opportunity to congratulate the ECC-NET on the 15th anniversary of its creation. You asked me about my wishes on sustainable consumption.
Yeah.
One thing is clear. Consumer policy is going to become a motor for the transformation towards greater sustainability. After all, if our production and consumption patterns had been sustainable, in the past, we would have had no need for the 2030 agenda of the United Nations in the first place. Within the agenda, I would like to highlight SDG 12 for consumer policy. SDG 12 calls on us to ensure sustainable production and consumption patterns. In my view, SDG 12 must become the point of reference for all our actions in consumer policy. New rules on ecological and social needs must enable sustainable consumption in the widest sense of the word, both in over-the-counter sales and online transactions. In this context, we should, however, also ask what substantive, reliable, and easily understandable information offers consumers' orientation concerning the sustainability of products, but also their production, storage, and transport conditions. We must also ask who is in a position to offer such information. In my opinion, the following measures offer some examples of what might be needed to achieve the aims of the 2030 agenda, although I fear that they may prove not to be enough. As far as concerns a hierarchy of warranty rights, we should consider to what extent giving more prominence to the right to repair a product as opposed to replacing it with a new one. This might offer advantages both for consumers as well as for the environment. Part of improving the durability of products is also that producers should produce their articles in a way that allows different individual parts to be replaced. I would like to take changing battery packs as an example for a service which should be readily available to consumers. I have a mobile phone with a fixed battery. After 3 years of use, its capacity has steadily decreased, and I find it rather irritating that replacing it will involve a great deal of bother. How easy a product is to repair is certainly something I will be keeping in mind when purchasing a new device. Another element in encouraging the durability of products is, of course, ensuring the availability of spare parts over a long period of time. This is an aspect which the new consumer agenda takes into account. Furthermore, consumers' rights could be improved regarding software updates that help to ensure sustainability and the long usability of products.
Okay, thank you. You've given me a couple of insights that, again, as a consumer, you don't always think about that type of elements when you think about sustainability. And these were very spot on and very tangible. I love them. Anna, what's your opinion on how to, what are your wishes? What do you wish to get to that sustainable consumption?
Good afternoon from Karlstad in Sweden.
Okay.
Well, before saying something about my wishes, I just would like to say that I'm very happy to have this opportunity to meet online and celebrate the anniversary of the ECC network.
Yeah.
And I'm also glad and honored to take part in this panel discussion on behalf of the ECC network. But for my wishes, I actually have 3 wishes. My first wish is that there is available information and support for consumers to make sustainable choices. I think a key to make the information easy is accessible when the consumer needs it. As an example, our host in Sweden, the Consumer Agency, have developed a web tool for consumers that is a guide on what different labeling on products means. This is easy accessible in your cell phone when you are in a store just on your way to buy a product. And additionally, I wish that ECCs will be able to not only assist consumers with questions about buying goods and services and making complaints, but also guiding consumers to be more aware in making more sustainable choices. In the ECC network, we are already measuring green issues by using the label sustainability in our case handling system, IT2. And when assisting consumers, I think it's essential to develop a specific method on how to give information about sustainability without the consumers asking for it.
Yeah.
Our national consumer information service in Sweden is called Hallå Konsument, which is strongly connected to ECC Sweden, is already doing this in the dialogue with consumers. We do this by listening to openings to lead the conversation towards sustainability, and then try to add a perspective such as, when you shop online, you can think about this, or when you book a trip, think of this. That was for my first wish. My second wish is that in the future, the sustainable choice is the easy and affordable one. Information towards sustainability choices is of course very important, but there is a need to complement it by additional measures. On this, we count on the policymakers. And my third wish is that we can use and take the full potential of the daily work of the consumer assistance by the ECCs. The daily work consists of direct contact with consumers, which leads us to early detect the changing perception and also new needs and expectations by consumers. If all ECCs in our contact with consumers can raise the awareness of that all choices matters by providing updated and relevant information on sustainability, I believe this is a way forward.
Okay, I love the fact that you focus on the interface that you create with the consumers. I've been writing it down, and I think you want to feast it, and feast stands for you want to make it fast, easy, accessible, simple, and tempting. And the more you make it a feast, the easier it will become for consumers so that being sustainable becomes a part of your daily life without you having to think about it. That's more or less your dream, I reckon. Now we move to Bulgaria. I reckon, Nikolov, I reckon, Bogomil, that you're in Sofia, no? No? Yeah, okay. So what's your idea? What's your wish on sustainable behavior for consumers? What's your wish? Also, what's your wish list? We don't hear you. We don't hear Bogomil.
I'm sorry.
Okay, now we hear you. Now we hear you. You were muted.
I just forgot that I have to unmute my micro. So
no problem at all, man. Greetings.
First, my best wishes to all the colleagues in the ECC network, and I hope to witness next anniversaries throughout the years. But before we reach the next anniversary, we'll be very happy to have more achievements. And I fully support what Monique said, that we cannot put all expectations on consumers. It is right that consumers may lead the way in this sustainable consumption, but we are only one of the actors. And I can give you this example. We all know what the shark fin soup causes to the environment, because people who consider this delicacy, they contribute for killing of 100 million sharks per year. But that's not all, because when you kill the sharks, then you kill all the ecosystem in the environment. And when this problem become widely known, there are some indications that the popularity of this habit is going down, but it will not disappear unless we have further measures. So it is obvious that consumers have done their job, but in order to stop this, to resolve this problem, we need further steps. That the same logic may apply to all the goods that we consume on a daily basis. Consumers may contribute, but they cannot fully resolve the problem. But I'm still optimistic, and I give you this example. The European Eco Energy label was a huge success because consumers have driven have forced technology development, and in just 10 years, we've seen huge developments in many of the products, and the scale from A to F become too small, so we needed to adopt the legislation. So it is a clear proof that if consumers are given the right information, they may force the business to find new solutions.
Okay. Now for the second question, Bogomil, I'm going to stay with you, so don't mute yet. I'm going to stay with you. And we have to be pretty harsh on the time, so try to keep it condensed. Where do you see the European consumer in 5 years' time? And maybe you can make a distinction what you think, where the consumer will be, and where you hope the consumer would be. Yeah? Where do you see the consumer in 5 years' time? 5 years is quite a lot, you know.
Yeah, I see too many plastics around me. I'm in the office, but there are so many plastic stuff. Like, let me show you this kettle, for example. It's made of plastic. Why not made of steel or ceramic? So in 5 years, I hope that there will be less and less plastic around us because we have alternatives and we need to use them.
Yeah, okay. And do you believe, Bogomil, that the consumer will be more conscious, that the consciousness will grow?
I hope so. And there are many instruments that we know, and I will only quote taxation now, because if you go to the shop, you will see that this plastic kettle is the cheapest one. So there are many consumers who are very aware of the damage, but they still buy the cheap product. So if we manage to put different technologies under the same market conditions, then the consumers will definitely choose the more environmental friendly one.
So what you say is that impact on planet, people, on environment should be included in the price and should be included in making the price higher because we pay for it. Okay. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, one of the tools that we have, I think, to change customer behavior. Anna, I come back to you. Where do you see the EU consumer in 5 years' time?
Well, for the perspective of 5 years, I think actually it can happen a lot. I believe the consumer's attitude towards circular economy and green consumption is already today growing rapidly.
Yeah.
But I think many consumers find it hard to make sustainable choices. So hopefully in 5 years, there is easy, accessible and reliable information on sustainable consumption for consumers so that they can become more responsible to make informed choices. I think sustainability should be an important factor in consumers' purchase decisions.
Yeah.
In the ECC network, we are, for the coming years, looking forward to work on the side of the European Commission on the Green Deal and engage our communication activities in promoting sustainable choices for consumers. And already for next year, we have a working group within the network that has been appointed to work on sustainability. And activities are discussed in awareness raising, in planned and premature obsolescence and greenwashing practices, disguising misleading environmental claims, and also activities to inform consumers on legislation on spare parts and repairs. And also with the now prevailing pandemic, I believe this has already changed the action of many consumers to adapt to a more environmental aware behavior. Since we travel less, there's less flights. But on the other hand, e-commerce have dramatically increased. This has also led to the amount of cases in the network, is many related to e-commerce.
Yeah.
So in this, I believe there's a need to find the right balance between, on the one side, the core subject of the support of the ECCs, which is to help the consumers to get the full potential of the internal market, often through e-commerce. But then on the other side, the promotion of more environmental aware behaviors. So this is a difficult balancing act.
Yeah. Okay.
And if we have time, I really would like to hear my fellow speakers to comment on this, if there's time.
Okay, but we'll try to, I'm looking at the clock, we might have some time left.
We'll see.
Rainer, I promised to go back in the reverse order, so what's your opinion on where do you see the EU consumer to be in 5 years' time?
Let me say this, either production and consumption will be well on the way to establishing sustainable production and consumption patterns, or the conditions for effective consumer protection will themselves be at risk. If we manage to make good ground on putting into place measures to achieve SDG 12, and the European Consumer Agenda is a very good step in this direction, the following scenario or vision might be placed. And I very much hope that this will be the case. The EU has long offered consumers a high level of protection and continues to do so.
Yeah.
The work of the European consumer centers contributes to this within their networks. Trust among consumers in the internal market and European institutions is strong. They are able to contribute to sustainable economic growth. In concrete terms, consumers increasingly turn to sustainable options among other things because they have the possibility easily to contribute to the recycling of the products they use. As a result of the implementation of different EU initiatives, there's a right to repair. It's a vision. At the same time, the use of recycled products has become easier, cheaper, and more highly regarded than the use of new products.
Yeah.
Consumers are in a position to evaluate the sustainability of products and services on the basis of substantive, trustworthy, and easily understandable information. And the European consumer centers contribute to encouraging consumers towards more sustainable behavior and inform them about their rights and opportunities in the internal market. That's my hope.
Yeah. Okay, but it's the kind of hope that we hope that will come true. No, it's not just hope. Yeah, absolutely. Monique, it's up to you now. You're the only one I don't know where you're calling from. Monique, you're still on mute as well. Yeah.
I'm calling from Belgium, but not from Brussels.
Okay.
A little bit south of Brussels.
Okay.
And just a personal message to Bogomil. This is a glass bottle, so plastic is not everywhere.
Yeah.
And, but I also wanted to say, so my expectation or my wish or my dream that I hope will come true, and we will do everything to do so, is that consumers have much more better understanding of how they can work towards being sustainable. And I think there the ECCs have also a very important role to play. And just to debunk, there is a lot of debunking to do. For example, we do not need all to become vegetarians to contribute to a better planet. If we only reduce meat to eat it 2 or 3 times a week, if you really want to go on eating meat, that's okay. And then I saw in the chat something that I really need to debunk. A paperless office is not a more sustainable office if you don't delete your old emails. Because keeping your emails in your mailbox is very bad for the planet, because there is a server turning 24 hours, 7 days to keep that mail available for you. So it is very important first of all, to know that for yourself. And just a tip, the bonus of my staff depends on whether their mailbox is clean or not. Just so that you know, that's a good incentive.
Thank you for the tip. I never thought about it, but you're absolutely right. Yeah.
That now to be serious, what I really believe is that consumers should be made aware as of now that there are a lot of low-hanging fruits that can be done by people in order to contribute to sustainability. What I believe is the biggest threat within the 5 years to come is not coming from sustainability. It's coming from digitalization. And I believe that here again, ECCs and other consumer organizations have a major role to play to raise the attention of people that they should not just give their data away, and that we should all be together working towards better protecting people against the invasion of privacy by the big tech.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. If you would ask me where I wish that the world would be, is that we have the full ownership of our own data, and that we decide who gets access to our data and who doesn't get access to our data. And I hope that one day that will happen, because otherwise this is not going the right direction. That is my opinion. Anna, we still have, oh, sorry, Monique.
Yeah, just one last word, because it's very close to my heart. It's there's a very strong link between protecting consumers' data and protecting our democracies as citizens. Fair and free elections depend on whether your consumer data have been hoovered up by somebody you are not even aware of. Now I stop.
Okay, no problem at all, and sorry for interrupting you. I wanted absolutely to grant this last couple of minutes to Anna. Anna, you had a question for your colleagues in the panel. What was that question? Because I think you're curious about their opinion, their point of view. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It's just this balancing act that I mentioned between, on the one hand, helping consumers in the e-commerce with the problems they can have there. On the other hand, promotion of more environmental aware behaviors, and the balancing between promoting sustainability choices and the e-commerce. And I would like to hear your comments on this.
Yeah. Monique, you raised your hand. Yeah, okay, no problem. Yeah.
I believe that e-commerce is a tool that does not necessarily need to be promoted per se. E-commerce has a lot of advantages for consumers, but it also brings a lot of risks. And certainly, and not only risk in terms of sustainability, because, for example, if you return a good that you don't like, it very often ends up in the waste, or it's being destructed. But also risks for your protection as a consumer. You know, your right of withdrawal is not necessarily respected, your legal guarantee rights. There is a lot of downsides to e-commerce. So maybe the ECCs, I know that you, of course, one of your major scope of activities is around e-commerce, but maybe one of the roles is to raise attention and awareness of people that e-commerce is maybe not the most sustainable solution in the broad sense. It is not necessarily environmental friendly, and maybe you could just look in the shop next to your house whether you cannot get that product at the same price or even at a lower price.
Okay. Anybody wants to add something to Monique's point of view? Reinhold Bogomil?
If there's enough time, yes, sure.
Yeah.
I think it's a very good point. Obviously, sustainability plays an important role, but the core tasks of the European consumer centers should, of course, not be neglected either, namely informing consumers about their option in the internal market and, above all, about their rights and supporting them in disputes with companies in other European countries. Yeah. We too have been seeing a steady increase in the number of COVID-19 cases, and not least, the pandemic has contributed a massive rise in business online. It's absolutely right that we have to strike a balance. On the one hand, it's particularly e-commerce important to heighten consumers' awareness of sustainability issues, for example, as regards transport and packaging of goods. On the other hand, we must inform them about their rights and offer help in enforcing them. The primary role of the ECCs has always been to contribute to consumers' ability to actively make use of their rights. In our view, bearing in mind the SDGs and in particular SDG 12, part of the ECC's works remains to help consumers to develop more sustainable lifestyles through balanced and target group appropriate information.
Yeah. Bogomil, do you have something to add? I love the lifestyle element of this, because that is the origin. Yeah.
I want to say just one question. It is not so important how we distribute goods, but how they are produced before it, because the main concerns come from the production materials, technologies, chemistry that is used. And it is very often that we are greenwashed by receiving information about one certain aspect of a product, but all the process before that is hidden for us. And I also believe that the ECC network may do a lot to reveal such greenwashing facts and inform consumers about them.
Okay. Anna, does this kind of answers your question? I have the feeling that we could go on for hours. You guys have my attention, and not only my attention, but I feel the passion. And that's what I love about doing stuff for ECC. It's all about passion. I only met passionate people. And again, it's not only celebrating 15 years of ECC, but I'm as a citizen, as a consumer, it makes me feel very positive about the impact that you guys can have on my behavior, because you have to change my behavior as well, but not only my behavior, but behavior of my fellow citizens. So thank you very much for your contribution. Sorry to have to cut this because, again, we could go on for hours, but thank you very, very much. And have a good afternoon. And stay tuned because we're going to celebrate at the end. Yeah? Okay. A little bit behind schedule, sorry for this. But it was all way too interesting to cut it short. Now we are going to listen to Mr. Niels Berndt, who's the Director for Consumers, who's going to talk about the role of the ECCs, the different ECCs, in the implementation of the new consumer agenda. So I reckon, Niels, that you're going to look forward into tomorrow and even the day after tomorrow, and the role that the ECCs can or should play or will play in that future.
Yes, thanks a lot, Rick. By the way, also thanks for a great and very lively moderation. But before looking forward, allow me to look back on this special day and to thank the ECCs and all, as you say, the passionate staff of the ECCs. It's the people in the ECCs that make the ECCs such a unique instrument in Europe. And Europe, that we should never forget, stands for an area of values, of a high level of consumer protection, of freedoms, of the confidence of consumers that they have rights, the knowledge that they have those rights, and the willingness to enforce those rights. And that's precisely the point where the ECCs come in, because in reality, very often consumers either are not fully aware of their rights, or if they face problems, they do not enforce their rights. In particular, when it comes to a cross-border experience. When you have to deal with an airline that is sitting in another country, it already will write to you in another language. You don't know the legal scheme. And that's where the ECCs do an incredibly important job to make sure that Europe is not just an area of rights on paper, but is really reassuring the consumers, is helping them. It's a service that you ECCs are offering to the citizens for free. So let's say it's an amazing service you're doing. And I think that every citizen who writes to you, everyone whom you help, will appreciate very much the work you're doing. And by reassuring the consumer in their rights, helping them in their cross-border experience, you're not just working on this individual case you're solving, but you are selling the European idea. You are reinforcing the understanding and also the political support, the foundations of our union. So therefore, really, thanks a lot for the impressive work you're doing. Congratulations and happy birthday. So, Rick, sorry, that I needed to say. Also because that work of the ECCs, obviously with the current pandemic, becomes even more important. We have seen over the last couple of months almost 100,000 queries to the ECCs going in relation to Corona. And that also shows that you, ECCs, for consumers are a very important reference point. But let's say, as Rick, you were saying, we're living in a time of change, and the change becomes even faster. The fundamentals, I would say, of a high level of consumer protection, of the freedom we are guaranteeing, they remain. But obviously, as the context is changing so massively, we needed a new policy framework, the new consumer agenda that the Commission just presented last week. Allow me a few words on this consumer agenda before then explaining where then the ECCs can come in. This new consumer agenda puts forward a response, first with regard to Corona, which is really challenging our day-to-day life, our economies, our societies, but also, of course, our consumer experience. We have talked about a couple of issues already, also with the young journalists, the travel issues, the scams, the move from offline, where shops are closed, to online, the dire financial situation of consumers. This, of course, the consumer agenda looks at, but also sets forward a path to see how in the mid to long term, the current pandemic will change our behavior. Will we be more paperless? Will we be, as Monique says, more considerate also of our eco impact of the digital life we are having? How will our mobility pattern look like in the past? Once we start going back to the office, will we rather use our car or public transport or perhaps the bike? So we have to look into the longer impact of COVID. And then the consumer agenda also sets forward 5 key priorities for the next couple of years. The role of consumer in the green transition, which we discussed already, in the digital transition, strict enforcement of consumer rights, the support of vulnerabilities, where the consumer agenda goes beyond the traditional concept of vulnerabilities, because depending on the context, in particular in the digital context, where our data, our behavior online is explored, every of us can be vulnerable in certain situations. And again, Corona was a stark reminder of this. And then also a strong international cooperation. What also is very important is that the consumer agenda recognizes that in order to address those challenges, we need to tap even more the cooperation to support consumers at the union and at the national level. It is impossible that we will achieve our environmental and climate ambitions if we are not drawing together the work at union and at national level. And of course, it requires all kinds of different measures, addressing the products, addressing also support to consumer, addressing the financing, addressing the energy sector, addressing the infrastructure, addressing the mobility, etc. So the new consumer agenda comes with the ambition to steer coordinated efforts at union and national level, and drawing much stronger than the past, even on a close partnership with all actors, including the industry, but of course also the European consumer centers. And there I would like to flag 3 areas where I believe the ECCs will be critical in implementing the new consumer agenda. First and foremost, again, for the consumer agenda, it's very important that the rights which we have put forward in this changing context of ongoing digitalization, of the move towards sustainability, are properly enforced. And I really believe that this fundamental task of ECCs to support consumers which are facing problems in exercising their rights is a very important one. We take all kinds of measures, including collective redress, but we need to equip consumers with this confidence, the information, and the toolbox to enforce their rights, in particular if they want to benefit from the internal market. And there, you as ECCs are absolutely essential. That's why this is a task where I think you really need to continue working. We are committed to continue your financing, even increase the financing, because we really believe this is a critical element to be taken forward. The second point I wanted to mention is that obviously we also need consistent efforts to reach out to consumers, to inform them, to help them also understanding which, for example, are the greener products. If a consumer wants to choose, which is the greener product, which are best practices. And there, this kind of information and educative role is also very important. And you as consumer centers, you have so many contacts with the consumers in the different member states that you have a wealth of knowledge, which is extremely important. You are in contact, you have your own networks, and there we very much rely on you to help us informing consumers, educating them. Educating always sounds so paternalistic, but let's say it's you can perhaps better speak about empowering, equipping, but let's say reminding consumers about their rights to have, but also telling them, listen, if you have a problem, this is your right. If you have a problem, these are the tools you have. So that's the second point. And the third point is that I believe with the wealth of knowledge that you have on how consumer rights are exercised on the ground, you also should be a very important partner in terms of implementing the political orientations of the consumer agenda and moving forward on the 22 actions that we put out in this consumer agenda. We want to come to a very operational governance under the new agenda, where every year on World Consumers Day, 15th of March, we are holding the annual Consumer Summit. And that shall be the main event every year, where we together, member states, civil society, even industry, union level, sit together to agree what are the concrete priorities that we want to implement over the next 12 months in order to transpose those top level priorities like green transition, digital, etc. And in order to come to those operational objectives for the next 12 months, we really rely also on your intelligence, your knowledge. You see how the markets are developing. And that's why I really call upon you to help us, let's say, feeding this kind of expertise and knowledge you have into our operational governance in preparation of the yearly Consumer Summit, and then also the work streams to implement the actions. Final word from my side, Rick. I really believe that the ECCs are the eyes that see what is happening on the ground, the ears that are hearing what is happening, our mouth that can inform about the rights, and of course also the hands that help the consumer to let's say move over the border and enforce the rights. So I'm really excited about the work that the ECCs have been doing. I'm equally excited about the work that you will be doing also in the next couple of years to help implementing this consumer agenda. With the passion you have, I'm sure you will do a great work.
Niels, you've made a fan for life, you know. Is there any last remark that you want to give, one last advice, one last thing that you want to share with the audience before we go to the very final part of this celebration party?
One final wish, because when in the panel you asked the question about the wishes, I think what I would wish is that consumer policy helps moving the European societies forward, the civil society together with the industry, on a fast path towards sustainability, where wealth is not a divisive way, but throughout the society we are moving forwards together, and this is building a stronger foundation for the Union.
Okay, thank you very, very much. Good luck, and again,
thanks a lot.
Yeah, fan for life. Let's now move to Nina and Margarita. Nina and Margarita have prepared two anniversary report presentations. Hi, Nina. Hi, Margarita.
Hello.
Hi.
Okay. Who's going to go first?
Just a little introduction from my
Okay,
side
then
first.
the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rick. Good afternoon, everyone. Just some short words about our anniversary report. My name is Nina Zeindelmeier. I am a communication officer at ECC Germany. And our ECC had a very pleasant role. We had the role to be in charge of layout and design of our report. It looks like this, by the way. We wanted it to look professional and modern at the same time. And we wanted especially the statistics to be easy to read and understand. Our ECC's graphic designer, Susanne Haas, created the design from scratch, taking into account input from the ECCs.
And I think we can be proud. This is a product, this is a report that contains contributions of every single ECC. So the report is a European, Europe-wide project, I'd say. Enough from me. Margarita Sinanidi will tell you much more about what you can discover in this report. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. And now from my side, a bit more about the content of the report, because ECC Belgium was responsible for the coordination of the content. So yeah, this slide is correct. Cool. The report not only highlights the numerous achievements over the last 15 years, but also focuses on the way forward. ECC-NET received more than 1 million online queries over the past 15 years. Actually, the exact number is a bit higher if you include the offline cases received during the first years of existence of the network. The section, next slide, please. Hard that I'm not managing that. The section on coronavirus pandemic analyzes the great impact that COVID-19 had and still has on both consumers and businesses. The staff of all European consumer centers was there and is actually still there to answer the many questions and complaints received from European citizens. The ECC-NET received a record of nearly 90,000 questions and complaints between January and July 2020. As an example, ECC Italy had a 108% increase in consumer queries received between January and June 2019 and 2020. April was the busiest month of the history of the network in terms of consumer queries. 17,600 consumers contacted us for assistance. Next slide, please. And now moving to the ECC-NET's expertise, which is a big section of the report. As you can see, the top 5 economic sectors of cases received throughout the 15 years of existence are transport, recreation and culture, miscellaneous goods and services, vehicles, and restaurants, hotels, and timeshare, with 24% of the total number of cases received between 2005 and June 2020 occupying transport and 12% occupying recreation and culture. Next slide, please. So the last section of the report is dedicated to the way forward. Future is never easy to predict, as we have seen recently. It is well known that a future is not just somewhere you go, though, but you also create it. This means that governments, EU stakeholders, companies, enforcement authorities, and individuals play an active part in determining the direction of society through their actions and choices. The coronavirus pandemic put us all to the test, not only as individual citizens and consumers, but also as a Europe-wide operating network. It proved that fast communication, goal-oriented case handling, and strong international cooperation are needed to react rapidly to changing and unpredictable situations. So what ECC-NET seeks for the future is quite simple. Consumers to be at the heart of EU and global consumer policy, better value goods and services in the EU, and to help consumers get all the benefits of technological advances in a safe way, actually a comparable level of protection and fairness online as consumers enjoy offline. Consumers need to play a central role in digital transition. And we welcome the wide range of measures announced by the Commission, from addressing platform liability for goods and services on their marketplaces to redefining product safety when it comes to artificial intelligence and data protection. ECC-NET also wants to support sustainable products policy, as we have discussed today, and promote the transition towards green economy. And last but not least, and on this point, I couldn't agree more with what Commissioner mentioned before, which is to move from consumer protection to the enforcement of their rights. So effective enforcement and redress. In such extraordinary circumstances, it is vital, and I underline that consumers are protected, be it from scams, travel-related issues, or having their financial vulnerabilities exploited. ECC-NET stands for stronger enforcement and the vital need for cooperation between EU and national authorities. Next slide, please. And what will be the role of ECC-NET? The network will be active in supporting the new consumer agenda and the 22 actions, and will be ready to help shape consumer policy by providing first-hand information about the experiences of European consumers, but also to collaborate successfully with our partners and stakeholders, both national and European ones. So all this you can find in our full report, which is under the new ECC-NET website. And to be honest, I promise that even though it is an 80 pages report, it really feels like a very short leaflet. And we are really looking forward to the next 15 years of ECC-NET. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, if you can share the report, I want to have a copy. Yeah.
No problem.
Absolutely want to. Thank you, Nina. Thank you, Margarita, for the very clear explanation for the report. And again, I'm looking forward to being able to read it. Although, what is it? How many pages?
80.
80 pages. Okay. Yeah.
A lot of visuals, a lot of stats.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask you how much sweat and tears you've put into it, but thank you very much. Yeah.
You're
okay.
welcome.
Yeah. Now,
Thank
again,
you.
we're celebrating 15 years of the ECC network. There can be no celebration without a real celebration, and a real celebration is a premiere. We have a premiere today. We kept the premiere until the end of this session, of this event, of the digital event, and it is a digital premiere, so it fits. It's the launch of the new ECC website, and we've asked Linda. Linda, are you there somewhere? Hi, Linda.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm here.
We kept you waiting. We kept you waiting.
Yes,
Yeah.
the whole afternoon. But
Yeah, but this
I
is
thought it was worth it.
Yeah, but this is your moment. You can launch the new ECC website, and I haven't seen it, so I'm looking forward to it as well.
Okay, great.
Please,
well,
go ahead.
Thank you, Rick. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Linda, Marketing Communication Advisor from ECC the Netherlands. Thank you all for your presence today. I will share my screen with you and guide you through my presentation. So give me 1 second. So this year we celebrate 15 years of knowledge and commitment to consumer protection. We celebrate 15 years of the ECC-NET. Today I have the honor to launch the anniversary website of the ECC-NET during this event. First, I would like to thank everyone who contributed to the realization of this website. In particular, my communication colleagues and the directors of ECC Belgium, Ireland, Luxembourg, Austria, Denmark, Portugal, and the digital agency Betterwork for their continuous devotion and contributions. The anniversary website offers a clear overview of who we are, what we do, and the collaboration opportunities. You will also find an extensive anniversary report and everything that you need to know about our activities and achievements over the last 15 years. The aim is to improve the visibility of our network and to enhance the engagement with stakeholders through the EU, Norway, Iceland, and the United Kingdom. So now the time has come to launch our anniversary website. Do you see the anniversary website? Just check in.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. I will quickly click through the website and would like to invite you to do the same after this event. So now we're on the home page. You see a video with all the facts and figures of the ECC-NET. Here you have the anniversary report, as Margarita just told you about. A letter from the commissioner that you can read. More information about who we are. A very cool video created by ECC Denmark. A timeline that you can click through. Some quotes. And then what we do, partner with us with collaboration opportunities. And it's also a direct connection and has a direct connection with the individual ECC websites. So as mentioned, I invite you to click through the website yourself after this event. The anniversary website is just the beginning and the first step in our digital transformation. Next year, we will continue the development of this website, on which we will provide extensive information for stakeholders and consumers. Our network projects, position papers, public campaigns, reports, and EU legislation. So make sure that you keep an eye on our website. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you very, very much, and good luck with it. Thank you.
Thank
you. There's been a lot of efforts being put into the website, into the report, into making this event an event. I've only touched the surface of that, but I know that there has been a lot of effort. So good luck with it, and thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Before we actually go to the end, and we're going to ask everybody to turn on your cameras so that we can have this celebration moment. I'm going to give the word to Marie-Paule Benazzi, who is going to give her final thoughts about this event, about the ECC, and about the future of the ECC. Marie-Paule?
Yes, do you hear me?
I hear you and I see you. Hi, Marie-Paule.
Hello, thank you, Rick, for this great event, and indeed.
You made a fan. You absolutely made a fan out of me. Yeah.
I don't want to speak long because so many things have been said, and I just want to say that this network is a result of a great teamwork. And really a superb team, because so many partners are involved. Of course, sorry to speak about DG Justice and Consumers first, but we have a team here in my unit who is supporting the ECCs, and since the 15 years we have been quite a lot of colleagues who have moved on, but all of them, I think, they continue to keep the ECC-NET in their heart. Then we have our executive agency, which is now called Chafea, which is going to change name. But these are the people who are dealing with the money, which is really so important. Then we have the ministries of consumer policy in the member states, which are the co-funders. And many of them are present today, and I'd like to really thank you. A big community of consumer policy stakeholders, you have heard some of them, they are all supportive of the work of the European consumer centers and the centers themselves. So all of you, my dear friends, we've been working for years together. We have been writing the script, as you said, Rick, and some part of the script we certainly didn't at all foresee. But because of the strength of the network, of the preparedness of the network, of the tools we have put in place, I think we have seen how resilient was this network during the COVID crisis and what they did really for all the consumers. So I'd like just to say thank you to all of you. A lot of kisses, big kisses. I don't know how you do the kisses.
I don't know online.
Video.
Yeah.
But we were together at the 10th anniversary. So now let's celebrate the 15th anniversary. Thank you again.
Thank you so very much. Marie-Paule, the network always wins, The network always wins. It's about ecosystems, and if you create the right ecosystem, your ecosystem will always survive. That's the reason why an ecosystem is there. Now, we're going to close this event. I want to ask you to turn on, all of you, to turn on your cameras. If you don't want to be on camera for whatever privacy reasons, we can't force you, because we're planning to take a picture of if we can, about everybody that's here. And for those of you that, yeah, I can see you now, all of you. Thank you very much for being here. For those of you that have this in the neighborhood, yeah, let's raise a glass to 15 years of ECC and raise a glass up to the next 15 years. And if you've celebrated, I want to be invited. Good luck. And in the name of European consumers, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.